Hello, Highlanders. This is Rod Mann. This is my monthly meet with the mayor. I will go ahead and start because people join late and sometimes they watch after the fact. So let me just start with I have now gone through and responded to every comment that is in the survey. I have all the charts and graphs done except for the chart that I do, and since I have some charts and graphs I do relative to what the comments are about. So I go in and review the comments, and then I have a way of classifying them, saying that they talked about these things, and I have a list of topics, and I mark them off, and then identify whether the comment was positive or negative or neutral. The way I do that when I rate them, when you see my post that I'll do on that, is if somebody has a suggestion for how we can do things better, I view that as a neutral. I don't view that as a negative. If somebody says the city's horrible or this is awful, I'll rate it a negative, because you didn't have to say that to make your point. So those get negative. If you just are making a good suggestion, it's either a neutral or a positive. If you mix, thank you for doing this, but here's where I think you could improve, I'll list that as a positive comment. So I haven't classified all of them yet. I've got about probably got 400 comments to classify to go yet, so it'll take me another week. I would hope to get it done this week, but I probably won't for a couple weeks. But I do want to get it out there and share it with you. One of the things I have noticed in the comments is that people frequently comment on taxes and fees and are concerned that a number of the comments say our taxes are way too high, don't keep raising them. So let me just review with you how that works and how we compare. I annually do a chart in the summer. Let me turn that on for you. After probably August or September, I go through and I compare all the city's rates on a tax basis and then on a fee basis. The fees have to be established as part of the budget process every year, so I can look at the city's fees and analyze them for our neighbors. So I do that, and what I do, let me get over here to where I can see it, is I look at all the cities. So the cities that I want to pay attention to are Alpine, American Fork, Cedar Hills, Eagle Mountain, Highland, Lehigh, Linden, PG, and Saratoga Springs. And then I look at their different utility bill items like culinary water, and I make some assumptions about usage. And so it's that those assumptions are actually in a different spreadsheet that I that I have, not this one. Maybe I can get to it. Well, it's whatever the normal usage for someone in Highland is. I make that as an assumption, and then I compare the rates between the different cities based on the consumption of culinary water, pressurized irrigation, sewer. I make an assumption with garbage cans that there is one recycle and one regular can. Cities have a variety of fees. For example, Alpine has a $1 a month fee for emergency services. Cedar Hills has a fee, an extra fee. American Fork has an extra fee. We have two extra fees. We have the transportation utility fee and a emergency services and police fee. It's that's $12.50, or $11.50, I should say, and the road fee is $18.50. So we have an extra $30 tacked on. So I end up creating a spreadsheet, and I can compare rates between cities. The rates that you see highlighted in red are the lowest rate for that category. So like Alpine has the lowest PI rate. We actually have a very low rate for water, culinary water, but if you combine culinary and PI, Eagle Mountain has the lowest rate for culinary and PI, a little bit lower than ours. They don't have a pressurized irrigation system. That's why their rate's red there. In truth, we have the lowest culinary water rate, though, if you just isolate that. We also and there's something wrong with this my system right now, so we need to ignore the reds there. But anyway, if you look at the total, the monthly average bill is $142 for utilities. We're at $139, which means we're below average. Eagle Mountain is well below average. Lehigh is also low, and Alpine's low. If you look at property taxes, you can see that ours is on the average home, a home that costs $634,000 a year. That's worth that. The city-related property tax that will generate on that is $437. You take a $634,000 home and put it in PG, it's $605. If you put it in Cedar Hills, it's $606, or Eagle Mountain, it's $896. So we have a very low property tax rate. Only city lower is Linden, that's $433. So we're just barely above Linden. If you combine the rates, the utility bill and the property tax, and you treat that as a single amount that a city is getting from its residents, then the dashed line there represents the average, and you can see we're below average. And AF, Cedar Hills, PG, and Saratoga Springs are all above average. And you've got Lehigh's, let's see, Alpine is 1821, Lehigh is 1838. So Alpine is the winner, Lehigh is a close second. And then you have Linden, Highland, and Eagle Mountain are the next three. We're really close to Linden as an aggregate. There's 2077, and ours is 2113. So it's only just less. What is it? We are $35 more a year in total fees and taxes. During as I reviewed the comments in the survey, there were a number of people that said quit raising taxes. I think they mean fees, because the last time we raised our property tax in Highland was 2008. We reduced it between 2010 and 2012. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. And so the last property tax change we actually had was a reduction. Now, property taxes, a lot of us make an assumption that if our property value goes up, our property taxes go up. Not really true. So the way property taxes work in Utah, which is different than most other states, is the city tells the county how much money it needs. So let's pretend Highland last year said we need $2 million in property tax for Highland. So the county would calculate a rate that would generate $2 million for us. And so this year, let's assume there was no growth, that we had no new homes, but that property values doubled. This year, we would only get $2 million from the county, but our tax rate would go in half because the county is only going to give us $2 million. They would recalculate what rate we need to charge or what rate they need to charge to generate that $2 million. Now, any individual home might go up or down a little bit depending upon if their subdivision or the area that they lived in or live in, the property there grew at a faster rate than another part of Highland. You could see some differences in terms of rate changes within Highland for the Highland city tax because of a change in the percentage of increase. But if on average our homes in Highland doubled in value, then on average the tax rate would go down by 50%. Of course, if property tax or property values plummeted, so let's say they went down by 50%, then your tax rate would double for Highland, but the net dollars we generated would still be $2 million. So if there's growth, so if there's development, then the county applies the tax rate that would generate $2 million for us based on last year's request. And let's say we have 100 new homes come in, they would apply the tax rate that would generate $2 million for us last year, and then that's the rate that would get applied to the new homes. So they would exclude the new homes from calculating the rate, and then they would add the new homes in and then they would send out tax bills, and we would get a new value for the year, which would become our new base for next year. So maybe we had 10% growth in homes. We got a 10% increase in property taxes. That 10% would then be the new base. So next year, our base would be 2.2 million, assuming no new growth. And then if there was growth or degrowth, the value that we got would be adjusted based on the prior years. The tax rate that would be calculated to generate $2.2 million using the homes that existed prior to the next year. A little bit complicated, but bottom line is our property taxes do not index for inflation. So if the city needs to pay more money because fuel rate goes up for our trucks and materials go up, material costs go up, or we need to pay higher wages for our seasonal employees, and we give our employees a rate increase, a salary increase, then that has to come out of our budget, our revenue. And between taxes and fees, neither one of those change with inflation. That represents about 70% of the revenue we get. So at some point in time, due to inflation, we would need to increase either fees or property taxes. Now, we've used new fees such as the transportation utility fee to generate additional money for roads, which we could have done through property tax. But when we surveyed residents and talked to them, it was about a 60-40 split that said they would rather pay for the roads with a fee rather than a tax. If that ever becomes illegal, there's a case running through the courts right now. We would need to then switch from a fee to a tax to a property tax. On average, it wouldn't change what you pay, but if you had a home that was valued above the average in Highland, you would pay a little bit more in property tax than someone that had a home that was less than average, because we were going to get, I mean, let's say it's $1 million that we're generating from our road fee. We would ask the county to add that to the property tax that we generate, and then the value of your home would change the percentage of that fee that you pay. So the average right now we're charging $18.50 a month to everybody. If your home was worth 20% more than average, then you would end up paying an equivalent of, what is that, $18.50, about 85, $370 a month more than you were before. Or if your home was worth 20% less than average, then you would be paying $370 a month less for us to get the $1 million that we need from the road fee if we were to be implemented as a property tax. That could happen in the future. It wouldn't change what we get, but it would change how we allocate the costs to the residents. Right now, it's just flat. If you have a utility connection, it's $18.50. If you don't, you don't pay anything. So anyway, just to clarify, we haven't raised property taxes since 2008, and we did reduce them between 2010 and 2012. So don't complain about property taxes. You can complain about fees that have gone up. But again, when we raise those, it's pretty much to cover the cost of inflation that we don't get out of property tax or fees. So we've got to cover inflation. We do get sales tax revenue, and that can mitigate the time between when we need to raise fees or taxes, because sales tax revenue does go up and down with the economy. And we had a surprisingly better than normal year last year. I think I talked about this last month, but our sales tax revenue went up 20% year over year, is where we're tracking for the end of this fiscal year. Normally we see a 6 to 7% increase. So we do have more than expected revenue that came in, which mitigates the need for a property tax increase over time. It doesn't eliminate it. We do have things that we want to do that residents have asked for, like improve our park and trail maintenance. You should know, relative to park and trail maintenance, we only have 8 seasonals hired. We typically have over 20, or around 20. So we are struggling to hire seasonal workers. Some of that might have to do with unemployment benefits, that people can make more money staying at home than by working at the rate that we pay people to be seasonal employees. We pay about $13 an hour, and my understanding is you can make about $16 an hour on the extended unemployment. So we'll see how that goes, but we might not be able to do the same amount of work that we did last year. And so be patient. It's not that we don't want to, and it's not that we don't even have the funds for it. It's just the ability to hire people to do the work is not there. All right, let me check and see if anybody has texted me or sent a question in. Let me look at live stream here. Any comments? Hi, Mayor. Every time you publish these tax comparisons, I find them so fascinating and informative. Thank you so much for the time you spend on this. Well, you are very welcome, Mr. Stratton. I appreciate you looking at that. This is, by the way, on my blog. I do have a post with this data in it. My blog, I will share with you. Let's see. Actually, hang on just a second. I will bring up my blog. It's mankindperspectives.blogspot.com or just .com. I own the domain. So if you click on that, you'll see my latest posts, utility rates, and I'll search for that. That's 1819. Here it is. So this is the one I did last year. And then here's the charts that I showed you. So if we're scrolling down here and we're looking at the amount paid in each city for the average property home, and you can see property tax and the utility bill. Now, if ours, you can see in Eagle Mountain, the property tax is higher than everybody else's. You can see that we have one of the lowest property tax rates, and yet Eagle Mountain has the lowest utility fees. But if you add the higher property tax and the lower utility fee together, they add up to be just a little bit more than us. So that's kind of an interesting way to break down. And then you can also see as a percentage of the amount paid between those two, how does it break down? So you can see Highland has among the lowest percentage of property tax versus fees, and Eagle Mountain has the highest there. Interesting data. Something else that gets commented on a lot is zoning, lot sizes, density, and people concerned that we're becoming, less. Let me see if I have charts here. So here's some interesting information. If we take lot sizes and we're looking at homes approved since 2014, in R140 areas, R140, you can see that the largest lot in our biggest zone is 2.6 acres. The smallest lot in that zone is like 0.46 acres, which is 20,000 square feet. And in the R140 zone, you can have up to 25% of your homes be on lots less than 30,000, but they have to be more than 20,000 square feet, which is just under a half an acre. And so if we go to R130, you can see in those zones, you've got the biggest lot is 1.5 acres. The average lot size is 0.6. And that's still a good sized lot. And then in R120, that's the 20,000 square foot minimum area. Then the smallest is 0.46, which is again 20,000 square feet, and it does go up to a little over a half an acre. 0.6 acres is the maximum. Land by zone, let's see what that looks like. Percentage of land developed since 2014 by zone. You've got 30+% in R140. You got 28% roughly is a private development. Things like Sky Estates, and Sky Estate's pretty big. It had 170 homes, I believe. And then you've got within the county, you've got some land there, and you've got R120. Actually, this isn't percentage of land developed by zone. Okay, and then you got R130. If we go lots by zone, Again, lots of PD, some R140, and then a mix. Let's just look at this summary. Let's see what that looks like. So if we want to look at the average lot size in Highland, if you combine everything, then it's 0.42 acres. So and everything includes like the townhomes here in town center, or Sterling Point, Sky Estates, you know, the bigger lots. Most of the city is actually zoned R140, but looks the average is 0.42. The number of lots since 2014, and I'm probably a year out of date. It's been a while since I updated this chart, so there's probably another 100 homes in there that I didn't include. But this is still relatively representative of how things are in Highland. One interesting fact that I had staff look into last week was I asked what percentage of Highland remains to be developed. And so if once all the developments that have been approved are completed, then we will be 90% built out. There will be only 10% of the land inside Highland, or the land that we plan to annex into Highland, that will remain undeveloped. The biggest single piece will likely be the property across the street from the cemetery. They are developing about 10 acres of that that we approved just a couple weeks ago. But the balance of that land will be undeveloped. And as a single chunk, I think that will be the biggest chunk left to be developed. We have some 20, 30 acre parcels. Some of them are in the county, but they're completely surrounded by Highland. So when they develop, they will develop in Highland. And I believe some of them are owned by people that really they don't want to develop. They don't need to develop, and it would be their posterity that would develop it. So I think some of that will remain undeveloped for quite a few years. But that surprised me. I knew we were over 80%. I didn't know we were at 90. And that's a rough number. It could be off by a couple percent one way or the other. But that's still, what it tells you is the character of Highland is just, no matter, I hate to say this, but the council can't do that. A future council cannot do that much damage to Highland because there's only 10% left to develop. And again, the biggest piece is across the street from the cemetery. And so if you're concerned about us becoming not a bedroom community, we'll remain that for a long, long time. I can tell you that this weekend, if you don't already know, that the EastWest Connector Road is going to be open at 1 p.m. We'll have a small ceremony at 9:30 in the morning. We'll do a break the banner like a football team does, where we stretch a banner across the road, and we'll drive a fire truck through the banner. That should be a little bit fun. And then there'll be a classic car show on the road, and people between 10 and noon can do whatever they want on the road, whether you want to ride your bike or skateboard or walk or run. You'll have a brand new road that you can enjoy, and a brand new section of the Murdoch Canal Trail that you can enjoy unimpeded by anything. We'll shut that down around noon, and then we'll move to turn on the lights, take out the barriers, and at 1 p.m. the road will open, and then in about a month, you'll wonder how we lived without it, and will start thinking, oh, this. You'll feel like it's always been there. It will do a lot for us. It'll take some traffic off of 10th and August Highway because you have people in the mornings in Cedar Hills that take their kids to Mountain Ridge Junior High. So for them, taking the East-West connector is going to be a win. So you'll see some traffic from those people. There are those of us who live on the west side of Highland that occasionally travel to Walmart or to the hospital or to the temple, and this will be a much more convenient connection for us to get there. So we will see, I think, a good bump of traffic. Unfortunately, for those of you that live near Alpine Highway, there'll be a bump there, and there will be a smaller bump on the western portion of Canal Boulevard. It will increase. I don't expect it to increase nearly as much as what the north-south traffic will be on Alpine Highway, but it will level out the traffic that currently can only use 10400 and 9600 to go east or west. So that won't be fully functional until what we call the hollows is completed and the connection on Canal Boulevard to 68,000 is completed. That will happen sometime before the end of this year, sometime before September. That road will be completed. The nice thing is it won't be done when this road is open immediately. So people will not necessarily get in the habit of trying to use that to go all the way through, and they'll go north or south on Alpine Highway. But once that opens, for some people, it will be more convenient to use that to get from Highland over to American Fork or Cedar Hills or vice versa. So things will be changing, but connectivity actually improves traffic for everyone. For this particular project, it's estimated that by 2030, there will be a 1.2 million miles traveled less per year, and that grows every year, but over 1 million miles of travel miles reduction, and then a corresponding reduction in time people spend in traffic and money that they spend on their car and pollution that goes into the air. It's just a win-win-win when you look at it that way. The separation between east-west connections on major roads is normally about a mile. In our case, it's 3.5 miles today. So this isn't going to make it perfect, but it will make it much better than much better than it is today, and more on par with the rest of Utah, especially up in Salt Lake County, where they have a really good grid system in place. Utah County, because we develop differently, we have some issues with connectivity and having a grid system that evens out traffic. But anyway, that's the good news there. Let's see, what else can I share? Let's look at some of my survey data. So there were a total of 671 comments made in the survey by 631 residents. About half of the residents that completed surveys made one comment somewhere, and the 26% of the comments had referenced tax or fees, so that was a popular topic, or most popular actually. 24% referenced park, trail, field, grass, etc. So they were park related. Roads came next, about 22.5%. People were concerned about density, zoning, development. That was in 10% of the comments. And then it drops off pretty good. Library was in 5% of them. 4% had public safety and pickleball, which in years past was very popular. Was still mentioned a few times, not nearly as much as it has in the past. And to respond to the pickleball comments, we will be developing Mountain Ridge Park, which is just west of Mountain Ridge Junior High. The current plan is to put 8 courts in. There is actually room for a few more if the public and funds allow. So those will be started next year. We'll start putting in 4, and if we have extra money, we'll put all 8 in. The way that will be developed is we'll do the parking lot area first. That's on the north side. We'll do part of the All Abilities Park that we plan to have in there. Similar, it will be something along the lines of what Harvey Park in Cedar Hills has. We'll have pavilion, restroom, and pickleball courts. We're working with soccer clubs to help put in the grass, but that was going to be phase 2. If we can work with the soccer clubs, we can actually get that done earlier. So that'll be fun. That'll happen next year. That will not be on my watch. I've told some people this, but I am not going to run for mayor again next year. I have thoroughly enjoyed being mayor, and I plan to enjoy the remainder of my term. It will actually be a better next 8 months than if I were running again, because if I was running again, that takes time away from what I do, and I'll be able to focus just on being the best mayor I can be. I want to thank everybody for letting me have this growing experience. I am a much better person because I've served on city council and as your mayor. And I will continue to work hard through the remainder of the year and try and finish out strong. But you'll get to pick a new mayor this year. So you will be welcome to ask me my thoughts on whoever's running for mayor or council. I will be willing to share that. I would just counsel you when you're looking at candidates either for the mayoral race or for the council race to look at experience. Experience does matter, especially in the mayor's race. It would be, I think, difficult to be a successful mayor if you haven't served on city council or planning commission in the past. There's just a big learning curve, and some of that is taken away if you have served in either one of those positions. So I would seriously consider that level of experience for anyone running for mayor, and make sure that they're not a one-issue candidate, because what happens when whatever issue it is goes away? Let's just pretend we'll say pickleballs. Let's say someone wants lots of pickleball courts to come in. So they come in and they make that happen. Well, then what about everything else? Because being mayor is not just about pickleball, or maybe it's roads, right? Or whatever the single issue is. I would look for somebody that you feel is a reasonable person. You don't know what tomorrow's issues are going to be. No one expected COVID to be here. Occasionally we find things out that we didn't know were coming. Almost every year we have issues come up that we just didn't see coming. So you need to look for people that can learn and that can listen. We do get a lot of complaints from people that say, council doesn't listen or staff doesn't listen to us. And a lot of time that's not a fair comment in my view, because just because council doesn't do what you want them to do doesn't mean they didn't listen to you. It just means that in their view, the better decision was a different decision. And someone on council generally needs to be looking at what's better for the whole city as opposed to a single individual. Now, when it comes to specific rights, like property rights, for example, you don't want to violate somebody's property rights just because it's better for 10 other people, or 20 or 30. If they have a right, then they definitely, you shouldn't take it away from them because it's more convenient for somebody else. That's not what we're about. That is not a constitutional principle. But there are a lot of decisions that get made, and they're not. It's not always black and white. Sometimes you're dealing with good, better, best, and sometimes because of the options that you have available, you're dealing with bad, worse, worst. And sometimes whether something is bad, worse, or worst is subjective, and it depends on your perspective. So it is good to elect people or hire them who are capable of listening and have a skill set that allows them to analyze information and think about other people. I would look for people that have demonstrated some degree of unselfishness, because sometimes um, the right thing to do is not necessarily the popular one. And so you want to find somebody that can care more about others than his self or herself, because sometimes you're going to take flack for doing the right thing, or at least what you think is the right thing. And again, sometimes that's just very subjective. So I look forward to some really good people running for office, and it's nice when we have good choices. I expect there will be a few. So this year, the mayoral seat is up, and that means that's an open seat. So hopefully there'll be at least one or two people that run, at least one. And then we'll have two council seats are up, the Kurt Osler's and Scott Smith. So those will be available. You'll have to get reelected. And so if you feel like you bring a new and valuable perspective to the table, then by all means run. And running is a great, win or lose. I think when you run, you become a better person because you talk to so many people and you hear things. Of course, that assumes you're aggressively campaigning and talking to people. But when you do, win or lose, I think you make new friends. People have respect for you. Now, losing hurts if you're really trying. You're not running to lose. So, but it's worth the risk, because win or lose, you end up being a better person. You've made new friends. You will actually understand how the cities work simply by running, because you'll talk to people and you'll do some homework. And I would encourage anybody that is seriously interested in running. Now that we have our meetings online and recorded, if you're running, I do think it's incumbent upon you to be informed as to what's going on. So if you haven't been watching our city council meetings, I would encourage you to go through and watch them. I know they're quite long sometimes, and it's hard to know what to fast forward. So it's just one of those things that just takes time. But I personally, again, have been blessed and become a better person because I served on council and as mayor. It was not an easy decision for me to not run because I really, really do enjoy it. And but as my wife and I talked about it, it just wasn't the right thing. And I can't say anything else. I did enjoy it. So I look forward to a race. If you're thinking about running, feel free to call me, and I'll share my thoughts with you. My opinions are free, and they're worth what you paid for them. So feel free to call me. Let's see. No other comments I can see right now. Let me check my email. Did I get any email from anybody? I did not. Let's go about something else that's of interest to some people, and that is purchasing city land. We have a deadline coming up on May 20th. We had some criteria that we worked with staff and council to come up with a list of criteria that we use to determine whether or not to sell property. Right now, the easiest property to sell is going to be the property that the council and staff already reviewed, and between council and staff, we agreed that this is sellable. And then there are other criteria that we added on that, like does it affect the look and feel or of a neighborhood? Does it if it eliminates a trail, it's not up for consideration. If it comes within 5 feet of a trail, it's not up for consideration. Something that wasn't on the formal criteria, but I know I know this time around, and probably in perpetuity, we would be really reticent to sell anything that is deemed a conservation easement. I can't see that happening. I know there are some people that might want to buy land in a conservation easement, but don't get your hopes up because I don't see it happening this year. Abandoned trail easements, yes, we've already done that in the past. So if you have abandoned trail easements, that's certainly something that can be considered. We put to determine the price of the land, we created a basket of properties. We put a list together of about 10 properties that are adjacent to spaces that we would consider selling. We looked at the land value as determined by the county appraiser, which is a conservative value, so it's not high. And then we said we will sell that land for 25% of the average price of that basket of property. That way we have one price for all of Highland, and we don't have to negotiate on every individual purchase, which is really painful. So the price this year, I believe, is $274, maybe $276 a square foot, which is a great deal for land. But we feel like it's a fair price because orphan parcels have a limited number of buyers, but it's still something that adds value to the property. And that's kind of my understanding is the 25% of adjacent property value is a standard that's used in the commercial world when purchasing orphan parcels. You can go to the city website or look at the newsletter for details on that, but I believe it's the 20th that you have till the 20th to turn forms in. Those will get reviewed. We've talked about them in open meetings and reviewed properties. So you can go and find the lists if you look at our previous meetings to give you an idea of whether or not your requests will be granted. This is a new process that we've put together. Prior to that, there were some processes that involved getting signatures in the neighborhood and what have you, and that we found created a lot of dissension within the neighborhoods where people were trying to buy property. So we eliminated that process. We made it a council decision, and we've created a list of property that we're interested in selling, and then we'll review requests against those properties. Each year, I would expect that we would be a little bit stingy at this time because it's a new process. We want to make sure that the kinks get worked out. We'd like to review this annually. So don't be too disappointed if your request gets turned down. It's possible that it could be granted in the future. But I know not everybody is in a position to do that, but I just wanted to review that real quickly for those that are. Anything else? No more questions. Let's see, do I have anything else to show? So let me go back to my browser here and see what else I had up and available to share. City survey. I think we went over this. This is the year-over-year information. I think we covered that. Not sure if we got, I'm just going to click on charts here. Sorry, it takes a minute to come up. Come on. We scroll down. We might not have got to the bottom. I just have a lot of complicated spreadsheets on here, and I have a nice laptop, but it could be beefier, but I'm cheap, so I make do. So let's see, our public works ratings over the years, we had a dip in 2019, but we've recovered and we're moving forward. And public safety, in fact, 2019 was just a bad year for the city. Part of it, I think, was just we had a couple of exciting issues, one around pickleball courts and another around open space, which got resolved in the end, but it had a negative impact on everything. So people's view of the city dipped because of all the contention that was around. Let's see. Oh, here's an interesting chart or a tab of information. This is the Murdoch connector. That's the EastWest connector, Alpine or Canal Boulevard extension. Multiple names. It will be called Canal Boulevard. So on this particular chart, I can show the miles saved per year, the CO2, the annual CO2 reduction, and the annual operating cost savings. So if you look at vehicles and you base their operating costs on miles traveled, there are some standards there, and I from them and use them. But if you look, this assumed the road was going to get done in 2019. It's really 2021, so we're 2 years out of date. I think, though, that they're just looking at, when they did this projection, they were looking at expected volume of traffic. So the traffic should still be at 2021 levels if their models were good. And we can see if we go down to 2030 and highlight that, we're going to get 1.1 million miles saved in travel, which translates into CO2 per mile, grams. The annual reduction in tons of CO2 is 415,700 tons of CO2 emissions, and the average cost, the annual cost savings in terms of for vehicle owners is over $166,000 a year. So yes, the road, it makes it more convenient, but there are tangible benefits from it. So let me go here. Sellable land. This is what we were just talking about. Here are the properties. This is the list of properties that I have of land that we own, that staff deemed sellable. This particular parcel, staff thought we could. In looking at it later, we changed that. And this column here is whether or not the subcommittee that was looking at property approvals for this year felt like we could sell it this year. So there's some land in Viewpoint. There's land in Canterbury, North Canterbury, that we think's available. And that's these 7, this through this. There are a couple other parcels in other parts of Highland, but those are the parcels that we thought were sellable. You notice, or maybe you can't tell if you haven't gone through this with me, but there are no conservation easement. There are no conservation easement lands that are up there for sale. This is the utility. What is this? I can't remember. I keep a number of spreadsheets open. This is the land that we reviewed. And then this one is what? This is my open space parks and trails spreadsheet, which I think is fascinating, but it's really super complicated. There is some interesting information in here. This is actually all the lots, looking at all the lots in Highland, anything that has a utility connection of some kind. And I update that every year. So this has actually a very, very current list of property that you can compare. So if you look at lot sizes and you say you can, over about 40% of the lots in Highland are between 1/4 and 1/2 acre. That's interesting. About 20% is between 1/2 acre and 3/4 of an acre. And then about 14% is over 3/4 of an acre, 5% is an acre. And you can see there are a very limited number, actually 3.6% of the lots in Highland are actually more than 1 acre. So that's kind of interesting information. If you want to look at, for any given subdivision, what the lot size is, be it square feet or acreage, I have all this information, and I use this to look at how we're spending money. And so I can tell you, like, for open space land, where we're spending it. What it turns out to be is that Let's see. Let's look at, how about West summary? I think this is where the information I want to show you is. So right now, if in the open space world, if we charged for everything, make this 0. If we charged for everything, that's trails, parks, all the parks, the fee would need to be $31.61 a month to cover the cost. If we take out trails, all the trails, and we take out parks that are reservable and large, like Beacons Hills or Mitchell Hollow or the Wimbledon South Park, then the fee should be about a little bit more, about $21 a month. So for those of you that are in open space, if you take out the trails and the shared parks, which leaves you with just neighborhood parks, and associated open space, the fee that you're paying is actually fair. So that's my summary on that. This took me years to put together, actually, and so it's not 100%, and there's some variability there, but I'm really confident in the number because I've spent a lot of time on it and worked with a lot of people on it. So it's this kind of information that we're using to base decisions on as a council. So there is a lot of work goes on behind the scenes for council making decisions. You're always welcome to call me. Some of this stuff's complicated, but you're more than welcome to call me, and I'll sit down with you for an hour or two and walk you through that if you have an interest in that. I think it's always interesting looking at the city and trying to do what's fairest. Life is just never fair, right? So you can't, depending on your point of view and your perspective, what one person thinks is fair, another person isn't going to think is fair. But like I said, there's lots of gray areas, and you want people serving you that will do homework and try and do the right thing. You're not always going to agree with them, but that's okay. It's now 8:03, and I have talked for over an hour. I apologize. Thank you, as always, for being such good people. Today was we had a little celebration for Todd Train, who's our city engineer. He's leaving us, and while it's sad, I am just really thankful that he was with us for 5 years, because he was awesome. And certainly we didn't deserve him based on the pay we were paying him, and he just got an offer that he could not refuse. I would have probably tried to fire him if he had refused it, so that he would take it, because it was incredible, and he deserves what he's getting. And I think he's a good person. We have hired a replacement who I'm excited by as well. He'll be starting later this month. We're thankful that we found somebody that is really competent. We weren't sure that we were going to be able to find a really good person, but we did. But anyway, we had a little celebration for him, or honoring his service. And if you remember, a few years back, we had sewer backup in about 7 homes, and one of the homes had a foot or two of raw sewage in their basement, and the people who got to experience that dropped by today to thank Todd for working so hard to make it right, and he did. And in the end, they were well taken care of. There was about 6 weeks of a really challenging time for a number of residents, and some of them, and understandably so, vented their frustration on the city. And a lot of the issue, it was caused by a road work that was done, and a contractor that made a mistake. So it wasn't directly our fault, and Todd handled it really well. He worked with the residents and with the contractors and subcontractors, and we eventually got things sorted out. Um, it took a lot of staff. It wasn't just Todd, but he did a lot of work, and they just came by to express their appreciation for what he did for them during a very, very difficult time, because in the end they felt like they were treated well, and Todd got a lot of the credit for it and deserves it. And they took the time to tell him that, which was really nice. And that was one thing Todd did really well, was he was gracious and kind almost all the time, when um, a normal person might have been a little bit sharper and not responded with kindness. But he's an amazing person that way. So we wish Todd well, and I wish you well. And until next month, um, enjoy. Next month, we'll know who's running, and it will be an exciting time. And again, you're welcome to call me anytime. My number's on the website, 801-318-7141. That's my mobile. You can call or text me, or email me at mayor@highlandcity.org. Thank you, and have a great evening. Going to end.